Stories. Our guest is Waylon. When you're talking to your son and you're making an acknowledgement to him and you think you just have to tell him that you never graduated from high school.
Yeah, the thing about the education thing, you know, when I quit school, I realized immediately I'd done wrong, you know. And because when you quit school, all you can do is hang out with quitters. You know, the other parents are not going to let their kids hang out with somebody who's a dropout. And wishing I had at least graduated from high school, you know. Because, you know, I'd go into some office and here I am, a big shot singer and hot in the country and making a lot of money and everything, but I knew on the other side of that door there was a man who was educated. And a lot of times when I would stop at that door before I went in, I would have to brace up maybe and act a little tougher than I really was. The thing about it, I was afraid my son Shooter, who's 17 now, he was 10 at that time. I was so afraid he was going to ask me, and he had never had, how far I went in school. When I told him, I said, look, son, there's something I did a long time ago that was wrong. And I said, and I'm going to try to straighten it out now, at least from my own mind. I'm going to get my GED. I quit school, you know. And he looked at me and I said, now I'm in a lot of trouble because it's been 30 years since I even thought about school. So you got to help me. And he was studying fractions at that time. I said, I don't have a clue about fractions or algebra. Finally, I told him, I said, anybody that understands the algebra ought to go to a treatment center. And, but he helped me through that. I've never lied to him, and I've always tried to teach him to be truthful.
You were born dirt poor.
Yeah.
You say that your father was the hardest working man you ever knew in your life, and still you recall the first time you ever saw a man cry. He wept because there was not food.
Yeah, he did. He was working for $1 a day, and he was working sun up to sundown. Before sun up, he milked, I think it was over 20 head of cattle, and when he came in the evening, he had a lot of work to do. He just, but you know, the thing about it, everybody we knew was just like that, except the people we worked for, you know. And I saw my dad. I mean, he was the kindest man you ever met, and he did. He had his head in his hands. He was crying. My mother was taking us out the door to go find something to eat. But you know what? As I look back on that, everybody we knew, my cousins, they were worse off than we were, you know, if you can imagine that. And we lived in where it was a dirt floor, you know, but I remember Mama sweeping a dirt floor. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk about your grandparents and one who was sort of a role model for you, who drove a truck and drank. And
Grandpa Shipley, you know, I got in an awful lot of trouble because I said something in the book, you know, and it's talking about his drinking. Now, my mama and my aunts got mad at me because they thought nobody in Littlefield knew that Grandpa drank. Everybody knew Grandpa drank. You know, I mean, he was the guy who would get drunk, and if they give him any trouble, he'd put his hand around a gas pump and whip half of the police department. They even called me one time and said, what are we going to do with your grandpa? And I was in Tennessee at the time, and I said, you best leave him alone, you know, because you ain't going to win. I think Grandpa taught me to cuss, which is not a very good thing, but all right. But, you know, he had a way about him. He had a swagger, and the way he talked. When he cussed, it just didn't bother you that bad because it just seemed like it just slid right by. He and Grandma loved each other so much, but Grandpa was strong. And now he did his drinking, but he never got drunk when he, you know, and spent all of his money on booze. He had money for food in the house. Everybody had food, and everybody was fine. And he'd go get drunk on old Cooter Brown.
You said that in the book in those words. He got drunk on Cooter Brown.
Yeah.
And you say in the book when you were 16 years old, you said, I didn't plant this stuff. Well, you say it.
Well, I said, I didn't plant this stuff and I ain't gonna pull it up.
And stuff is not exactly the word you use.
No,
in the book.
I didn't. But you don't know how bad it is, you know. I mean, like, you can work in a coal mine, you can work anywhere, and it's all hard, you know, hard work. But to me, that may be harder than any of it. I left about a half a sack of cotton, which was a 12-foot sack, and I said, that's when I said that, and that sack may still be there. But if they're waiting on me to come back and get it, I ain't burned many bridges in my life, but that's the one I did. I remember Mama taught me a song. Said, we got a cow, he had a holler horn, fed that cow on green popcorn. And that was my first learning how to play is 2 chords, you know. First time I remember anything, I was in a jumper swing that Daddy had made. And it was the lamplight was coming from the kitchen. And I guess I was in the bedroom or something. But I saw this guitar, it had a cowboy on it, on a horse, rearing up. And I was trying my best to get it. And I couldn't have been 2 years old yet. But that was the most, I was just mesmerized with the guitar. I can still feel it.
You know, you talk about going through life, your own career, and it seems to me that from very early on, you knew what you wanted to do. You knew what your career was going to be. You had not only in your mind that you wanted to perform, but you knew how you wanted to perform, and you were going to do it your way. I know how I want to do it, and I don't need anybody else telling me what my talent is or how it ought to work. Where'd that come from?
That might have come from Grandpa Shipley too. He, you know, I mean, like everything he did was against the grain, you know, and I more or less did that too. But you know, since the day I can remember, only that, you know, I never liked to be told what to do. I just didn't like to be told what to do, and I didn't like for people to do things wrong, you know, to me. But as far as the drive I had for that, it was just something that was born in me, and it's still there. They called it outlaw. They called it all kinds of things, and all it was like I tried to do right by people, and I was taught that. You know, my dad was very, very strong, but he was a very gentle person. And there's one place in the book where I talk about where he backed this boxer down.
Because what had happened was this boxer's little brother had his ears boxed by your little brother.
Yeah.
By Tommy.
Yeah.
And the boxer came over and was going to mistreat your brother.
Yeah, he was going to give him a whipping, he said. And my dad was chopping the garden. He's working in the garden like he did every evening. And he wasn't a big man, you know. He was about 5'10" or 11 somewhere. And you know, you never think of your dad as being a big tough guy, you know. I mean, I never thought of him that way. And all of a sudden, everybody was afraid of Strawberry. Well, Strawberry was over there and had my little brother, and he was Tommy. He was just screaming to the top of his lungs, you know. Daddy said, "What are you doing with that boy?" And you know, he said, "I'm fixing to give him a whipping. He hurt my little brother." And Daddy said, "Now you turn him loose." Now Dad had a hoe, you know, in his hand, and he said, "No, man, don't get yourself in no trouble." Said, "I fight for a living." He said, "You turn him loose, or I'll come over there and break your back," which was the strongest thing I ever heard in my life, you know. But the thing that taught me such a lesson, if you're right, you know. Well, he went across the fence, and that old boy said, "Old man, you're crazy. Don't come over here." And he left the hoe back there. Now, I might have taken that hoe with me, you know.
But the marriages were very difficult, I take it.
Yeah. You know what? I wrote a song called Right for the Times. And it's actually about my 3 ex-wives. Now, everybody thinks it's about one woman, which tells you that I was making the same mistake every time, you know, it was like, it's hard to remember even why we got married, you know.
Yeah, well, you and
in
Maxine.
those times. Yeah, me and Maxine, and we never got along. We did things to really aggravate each other. I don't think we had intentions to hurt one another. I don't think we were that far along in the things, but just to make each other mad. And we did that very well. And having the kids, they say, do you know what's causing that? I don't really think we did.
Right.
Because, I mean, it's just one after the other. And they're wonderful. And when you look at them and think that they,
The children.
I look at our kids, I look at them and think, what we put them through all these
Sure.
years because, they're pulled one way and then the other.
Then your second marriage really broke up because
I had the kids with me, and she just couldn't deal with that. She wasn't a mean person. She didn't mean to be. But I have known a lot of men and women who can't deal with that. Now, I don't know. There's just something that's not in there.
right. And then the third wife, Barbara, was the daughter of a millionaire.
Barbara's a dear heart, and we're still friends, But she had no clue of what I was about. The music business, she saw things going on that she knew wasn't right, even though she didn't even know anything about the music business, But the thing is, the bigger I got, it seemed like she felt it was farther away from her, And the best way I've ever tried to describe Barbara, and the thing with me and her is that sometimes, we loved each other, but sometimes it's not enough, especially with Barbara, And but after that, I mean, I thought I was all over. I would never, ever be able to be married.
And so far as the marriage is concerned, you finally got it right.
Sure did. And
With the wonderful Jessie.
yeah, everybody said, "What's your secret? Been married so long?" And I said, "I ain't got one. Jessie has." She's the one with the secret. This woman is unbelievable.